turns out that this town as well is a major hub for this social engineering program. Aurora, Colorado is a town that has a large percentage of military personnel that live here. The adjacent base, also intelligence, families live here as well. When they're assigned overseas, this is where they would live when they're back on the home front domestically. And you can tell that this technology is being used on the people of Aurora, Colorado, many of whom serve in the military. And as I mentioned before, it's not only the general population of Seattle, the homeless, the TIs, but this technology is being used against military families, people who proudly and bravely serve their country and sacrifice everything so that you and I can be free, or at least we were able to be free before this technology started being used against us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's here as well, and there are some other cities. It seems to be adjacent to military bases. I've heard this from a lot of people, and I've noticed it as well. If you have a massive Air Force base near you, Navy as well on the coast, there's a good chance that some aspects of this program are being run at the adjacent military base and is being used on the towns and the people around that base. And I was not aware either of just how widespread the security industry was in terms of its numbers and in terms of its power within the United States of America. You're absolutely correct. And it's a great point you make. 1 million personnel, I mean, just think of that in terms of standing armies. Look up some of the numbers on active military personnel in countries like Russia and China and the United States, the European Union, and you'll start to understand just how many, 1 million people are and what can be done with that type of manpower in a situation like this domestically. So one of the things I think that is an advantage of the security industry, number one, it's private. So if you were going to roll out an army of gang stalkers across the United States to mess with people, to track people, to surveil people, to follow people, and to make their lives a general hell to live every day, then you would have to do it covertly. You would have to do it in a way that is not noticeable to the rest of society. And in fact, tactics that are used by private security companies, gang stalkers at large, are specifically designed to avoid detection, not from the targeted individual, but to avoid detection from the general public. And so it's a very interesting surveillance situation. It fits right in with other surveillance situations where they want the targeted individual to know that they're following them. And so in a normal surveillance situation, you do not want the person you're following to know that you're following them. They actually want the TI to know they're being followed because it has the maximum psychological impact. While at the same time, they need to do it in a way that your neighbors and your friends, your coworkers, and your family do not know that they are doing this to you, because the entire point of the program is to convince everybody else that the TI is crazy. So they need to surveil you and gang stalk you in such a way that other people don't notice that they're doing it. And so what happened is I was actually with a friend when we were driving from Seattle, and I decided to leave. It was one of the last friends that I was able to have before this massive organized stalking campaign completely destroyed my life as well. And now I'm completely isolated as well. But I was driving with a friend, and we were being followed by people, obviously gang stalkers and military intelligence in my case. But they drive in regular vehicles. They're in modern trucks, SUVs, sedans, every kind of car. Many of them are Chevys. And if you're being, I think a lot of TIs have noticed this as well. Chevy seems to have some kind of a deal with these security companies. And I know, for example, my security company purchased most of their vehicles from a particular car company. So these are some of the things I noticed. But we're being followed by these people, and what they will do is the otherwise unmarked car will have military stickers on it. They'll have license plates that say Air Force. They'll have stickers that say Marine Corps or Army. And but generally the personnel as well that are general description. A lot of them have tattoos. A lot of them are young. A lot of them appear to be, very young, maybe a military type of a look, only with kind of a gangster type of a vibe to them. And I think that's for the purpose intimidation. And I know that is one of the psychological aspects of what I learned at SIS in terms of Gangstalking. Is the image you're projecting is very important. It is scientifically planned down to the last detail to have a very specific psychological effect on the target. But anyway, we're driving and we see all these cars around us, and they all have military and Marine Corps, Air Force, and my friend said, you know, is that the Air Force following us? Is that the Marine Corps following us? Are these people, you know, military? And it's a very good question, and they are trying to give that impression that who's following you is active military. And of course, that's not the case at all. They are private security contractors, or they are at least intelligence operatives that are operating domestically under the cover of being a private security contractor. And the reason they put those stickers there is to get the impression they're military. And so what you have a lot of times, the way they get license plates that say Air Force sprayed on them is they are former Air Force. The way they get some of these insignias on their car, they are former Marines, and they are now retired. And after active duty, a lot of them need jobs, and they are being hired by the thousands each and every day to staff private security companies all over the country. And private security companies and private investigators, what they do is they investigate, they surveil, they follow, and they carry out covert intelligence and investigative operations domestically in a way that can't be protected. It's the perfect way to carry out gang-stalking operations against TIs. And the number one rule in intelligence work and in security work in terms of at least people that are going to be surveilling the public is to remain undetected. And so in terms of a profile, they go out of their way to hire people of diverse ethnic backgrounds, each gender, all age ranges, more or less. There's obviously limitations if you're too old to be able to follow people on foot. But I've noticed a lot of the mobile details, a lot of the mobile assignments will be carried out by the more elderly of the private security contractors because they can't be operating in an inner city, for example, on foot, walking up hills and so forth. People with disabilities as well cannot do that, so there'll be mobile units. Static and mobile units are the two basic units you have within private security, and then they're assigned different assignments. But yeah, as far as the profile, they are ex-military, they are ex-intelligence. Many people, like myself, have no ties to that, but they start off low in the company as a security guard, maybe executive protection, maybe risk threat assessment, maybe they have an IT background, so they get in that way. And then they're trained little by little to be led into the gang stalking and kind of the covert aspect of the company, which is involved in the social engineering program domestically to target TI. And so what you have is, in terms of a street gang stalker, the kind of people that will have constant contact with the TI on a regular basis for the purposes of being known as gang stalkers to the TI, they will have a certain profile physically. The men will often be very strong, they work out, they're buff, for lack of a better term. They will have a generally intimidating demeanor, although when you talk to these people, of course, they could be completely nice, very, very decent people, most of them. They're doing their job, and I don't think there's any way they have to get out of it, because they all know if they come forward and they say something, then they're going to get gang stalked as well. And unfortunately, I'm proving that by the way that I'm being targeted and gang stalked, and technology is being used against me. But this is the general appearance that they give, and so it's to be intimidating. And there's a very fine line between kind of the military intimidation and what you would call a gangster or a thug intimidation. And both aspects, of course, are there on purpose, and gang stalking has been designed specifically to have both aspects there. They want you to believe that your country hates you. They also want you to believe that you're in great danger all the time. And the thug, gangster aspect of the vibe that they're giving off is there specifically for that reason. And so you can start to see how psychologically this is going to have an effect on someone very, very quickly. If they're under the impression that the military, their own government, and then a bunch of thugs are following and chasing them around the country, it has a devastating psychological effect. There is a precedent, I will say, that I'm aware of for hiring people that have displayed a certain moral ambiguity concerning certain issues. For example, within certain private security companies in the Seattle area, there are a lot of ex-LAPD. In fact, when the Rodney King riots went down and a lot of the scandals that went on in Los Angeles, the LAPD went through several stages of reform, and anybody from LA, of course, will remember this. And the people that were forced out of LAPD ended up almost exclusively going to work for private security companies. So you can imagine the types of characters that ended up in private security companies when the LAPD didn't want them anymore. Also, people that have criminal backgrounds are often coveted for Gangstalking type of assignments. The reason for this is that they do not mind, obviously, mistreating other people. They have what could be called a criminal mentality. But it's also important to note that despite the unsavory characters that are within this, the entire point of it is a hands-off policy. And this is very, very evil the way they're doing this. So, I mean, not in any way defended them. I mean, personally, for the people I worked with at SIS, that when you do first find out what's going on, you are disgusted by it. You cannot believe that this is what's going on. There is also a very quick, almost a peer pressure-induced acceptance of it that causes you to say, you know, this is pretty cool. And I'm just being flat out honest here about the psychology that's going on within these people's minds. It's pretty cool. We're part of the group. We're part of the massive army of people that is going to be okay no matter what, because we're on the right side of this, because we're the people with all the power. We're the people that with ties to the intelligence agencies. We're the people with ties to the government. We're the people that are going to be okay no matter what, because, you know, we are willing to violate the law to get away with whatever we want to get away with. And our superiors and our bosses are as well. So as long as we make them happy and we do our job, we're going to have a pretty good life. And I can tell you that this is exactly what is done to people almost immediately upon the revealing of what is really going on. They are offered a series of incentives. They're offered, first of all, acceptance into the group. They're offered acceptance into what will be the future of America, that you will be set, you and your girlfriend, or if you're married, you and your wife, your husband, your children are going to be taken care of. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to have brand new cars every couple of years. Your kids are going to go to the best schools, and you are going to be connected, for lack of a better term. And at this point, it really does take on almost an organized crime feel to it, because what you're dealing with are people that are pleasing their boss in order to do something that is absolutely illegal. They're monitoring and harassing and torturing and sometimes leading to the death of American citizens. They're violating their civil rights. They're violating their human rights. They're violating basic human decency. This is horrible stuff that's being done to people. And so you have to understand the psychological aspect that goes into convincing gang stalkers and people that are part of the program to do what they're doing. It is in fact, the psychological operation that is run against gang stalkers themselves and people that participate in the program is just as advanced, if not more so, than the psychological program that is run against TIs. It absolutely is. And so what you have is this very intense psychological program that's run. In fact, one of the things that I'm not sure people are aware of, but I'm trying to cover this on my site because I have direct knowledge of it, hive mind, voice to skull, emotion manipulation behavior, modification technology is being used against the gang stalkers themselves and against people in the program. And it is being used to assist them in doing their job, specifically to take away their conscience, specifically to take away their empathy and their sympathy for the individual, for the targeted individual, so that they don't feel bad, so that they don't feel guilty about what they're doing. They are many times intelligence agents and soldiers are trained to get the empathy and the sympathy out of their system, because you're going to be asked to kill someone for us. You're going to have to go on the battlefield and shoot someone, and you're going to shoot them just because we tell you to shoot them. And so a lot of the stuff that goes on in basic training and in terms of training intelligence operatives is designed specifically to make sure that people will pull the trigger when they need to. And stuff like human decency and love and compassion and empathy and sympathy and caring for your fellow human beings does not enter into the decision-making process. And so the exact same thing is done within the program, within the Voice to Skull Gangstalking program. And it is done not only by peer pressure and direct training, it is also handled by the technology that can manipulate the people's emotions to turn off empathy and sympathy and love and care and compassion, and to turn on what I call some mercenary hired gunman mentality. And the reward for going along with this is you get to be part of the social group. Look at the TI and how isolated they are. Look at how horrible their life is. Look at how sad it is. And every time I think about it, I start to choke up. It's so overwhelming. My heart just naturally goes out to these people, and I want to help them. But when you're the Gangstalker under the influence of this technology and the influence of the peer pressure and everything else, you don't feel that. And if you do, the technology is going to take it right out of your system. But look at the TI, how isolated they are. You're not going to be isolated like that because you're one of us. These are your people. Look around at all the other Gangstalkers. Look at around at the military and the intelligence services of the United States of America. Look at the local and state police. Look at the social workers. These are our people. You can date any one of these women that you want. You can date any one of these men that you want. Heck, we'll help you hook up. You can come and party with us, go out to dinner, and do all the things that people do together. And that TI can't. That TI can't because of X, Y, and Z. That TI can't because he's on the wrong side of this. You're very, very lucky to be on the right side, and don't you ever do anything to mess it up, because you will end up right where that TI is. You're not going to be one of us anymore. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be gangstalked. You're going to be tortured 24 hours a day by the most horrific technology ever conceived by the mind of man, and you are going to die, grow old, and die alone. And unfortunately, now I'm saying that, I had a self-realization moment. I mean, that's exactly what's happening with me. And I can totally and completely understand how that is a very, very effective strategy to get people to go along with being a Gangstalker and to help cover up this program. The entire point of this social engineering program that has been researched and developed for decades now, the full intent within the program, everything that's planned going forward, the day-to-day attitude of all the people, is that this program is going to be rolled out nationwide, and it will become the norm. Every man, woman, and child in America will be under the influence of this technology. Every man, woman, and child in America will be one decision away from having Gangstalkers turned against them. And the people making these decisions, of course, are not answerable to the American people. They were not elected. They did not pass any tests or go through any gates of initiations to prove that they're worthy to have this responsibility. They just make the decision, and you're a TI, and that's it. Every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America will be under the influence of this technology. And as you can see going forward, what's going to happen is a dividing line is going to be drawn in America. And it's not going to be Democrat or Republican or black and white, rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, religious differences, whatever it is. It's going to be based on who is on the right and the wrong side of this technology, who is on the right and the wrong side of this program. And so if you are not a part of this program, then there is a very real risk that you are going to become a full-blown, 24/7 targeted individual. And this technology at that point, when it is nationwide, will be used by automated supercomputer software programming that will manipulate the emotions and the behavior and the thoughts of everybody in the United States of America. And it can all be done remotely. It's very much like the microchip kind of tracking the New World Order, this entire, control grid that's supposed to be rolled out against the American people someday. And I'm here to tell you that it's already here. There isn't going to come a day where there's troops in the streets and tanks rolling down your neighborhood and riot gear and all this stuff. We might have isolated incidents like that. It might get like that every once in a while, but the true control grid is this technology, voice to skull, hive mind, behavior manipulation technology. And it can all be done remotely. It can be done simply by targeting you with the frequency, locking into the resonant frequency of your DNA and your mind, and in that manner completely track and trace, and control you 24 hours a day. And so the dividing line is going to be between people on one side of this technology and people on the other. And so if you are a gangstalker right now, if you're in the private security industry, if you're in the military, intelligence, local state police, community watch groups, what have you, the reason so many people are joining into this, the reason so many people end up on that side of the fence is because it is the only game in town. There is one side, and you're either with us or you're against us. And so going forward, that's exactly what I had to think about when I decided to make this decision. That is exactly what went through my mind, and that's why it took so long to decide what to do about this, because it is you are marking yourself. You are standing up and saying, "Hey, everybody, look at me. I don't like you. I don't like the program, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it shut down."
Anyway, I believe that my targeting is corporate driven, and we know
that makes sense. Yes.
And we know that the United States is a corporatocracy, so it makes sense. And you say that Amazon, what do? They offer up some of their employees as part of the protocol or the program?
Absolutely, yeah. They actually have they have dedicated entire buildings for the purposes of experimenting on their own employees and SIS employees. But absolutely, what you were saying in terms of California officials and them being involved, those are exactly the people that would be in the program in place to mess with a targeted individual like yourself. So that definitely makes sense.
Arrays that are doing the broadcasting?
This is interesting. I'm glad you brought it up. It is one of the most classified aspects of the technology in terms of my knowledge of it and the average security specialist knowledge of it. You have things broken down basically into a technical department and what I would call a personnel department. Personnel handles the actual monitoring of the technology and the gangstalking. You then have the technical side that monitors the infrastructure, the actual building of devices, antennas, cell phone towers. So I do not have direct knowledge of that. But I do know that it does utilize antennas, radar, and cell phone towers. And I think radar, I know for a fact, is being used for military bases. I know some of the antennas are being camouflaged within buildings, other structures. They have entire walls and structures built around them just to hide the existence of the antenna. So you can see the effort that goes into covering up the locations of them. And as a result, they're the most classified part of the program. And I do not know any specifics on that other than they're out there and they're everywhere already all over the United States. This system is operational countrywide. The terms that I call it, monitoring, there's some rather coarse terms that we use as well that are very descriptive but not very scientific. But the remote neuromonitoring is one that is, I think, the main feature of it, that they are able to get the information from people. And so that is the aspect I think that is going to be used very covertly against everyone in the country, to read people's thoughts, to see what they are thinking, and then determine whether or not they're a threat to the power establishment or to the individual motivations of companies or local officials or whatever it might be. Also, thank you for the information. I spoke with you earlier, and I really appreciate your help on that. In terms of documents, I do. I also have people that I am in contact with within the industry, potential allies that are sympathetic to our cause and are behind the scenes waiting for the right moment, that are behind the scenes hoping that the general public will become more aware of this issue and will give them the impetus that they need to start to move behind the scenes to make progress against it. There are a lot of people that are against this program and that support TIs, but they are in highly, highly classified positions. They are threatened if they speak out, and they also, of course, have family and friends to think about. So we do have allies there, and I do have documentation, and I am planning on releasing it. I do not know when, because I'm also planning legal proceedings against the federal government and possibly my former employer, DESC and Amazon, and my lawyer is advising me at this point not to release that, but depending on how that goes, very soon I may be able to do that. Absolutely, yes. I would be willing to help anyone that is bringing legal proceedings against the program or against the government. That is my main goal in coming forward, is to attack this from a legal perspective, and I would be happy to lend my testimony or my efforts to anyone that's pursuing that goal.
Okay, one other thing really quick. Are you a victim of V2K?
Yes, I am. I am a victim of V2K, emotional the works. I have got a beta version, I believe, of what is going to be rolled out against TIs in the next couple of years. My company was involved in a research development program of kind of the next generation of voice-to-skull and the frequency weaponry. And because I knew these people, I decided to blow the whistle on them. They gave me the most nasty version of it. It is highly, highly advanced. It's one of the reasons I've had a lot of problems getting relief myself, is because I'm dealing with something that is, I think only the military would have and know about in terms of its advanced state. So yes, I am getting all of it 24 hours a day. I'm currently homeless. I've tried 5 other jobs since I resigned from SIS, and I'm under constant torture, surveillance, and gang stalking.